Andrew, who's a guy out of Florida, and he says, religion gives meaning to our suffering. Atheism makes our suffering meaningless. Please, Andrew, tell Forrest and me what you mean by that.
Yeah, suffering is a calling. It is a journey. It is a test and a trial. But under an evolutionary worldview, an atheist worldview, suffering is just nothing. We're just products of nature. So you invalidate our suffering and you invalidate our experience.
I agree, actually, with some of what you said, but not all of it. Johnny, do you have something?
I think that I will say this. To the extent that religion gives meaning to our suffering, I would say that religion gives a rhetorical framework for suffering that might help a person weave that suffering into a narrative of a worldview in some way to help a person endure it if they find that there's meaning, I guess. Atheism does not have that narrative, and to the extent that it has a narrative, it's relatively cold. But humanism, on the other hand, which is not the opposite of atheism, is non-belief in a religion, not belief in a God claim. But humanism would seek to, I suppose, take into account the totality of the human experience and find not only a way to contextualize the suffering that you're going from a human perspective and encapsulate the tragedy of suffering, but also humanism seeks to eliminate unnecessary, heedless suffering, right? Mm-hmm. Religion doesn't really do that. It just kind of explains away that this suffering that you're enduring doesn't really matter because the real life is somewhere else. So, yeah, that's my initial thought.
Yeah, I actually said I agree with some of what you said, Andrew, and I use the word agree a little bit loosely because I could dig into it and be real nitpicky with some of it, as I like to do lots of times because I'm a pedantic asshole. But I think that, you know, when you talk about religion giving meaning to suffering and seeing suffering as this calling and all these things, surely that's what the belief is. Whether or not it's true, if religion is putting it in that context and that's what religion's trying to do for itself, sure. And atheism, I understand the way that you're using the word seems to just be like the rejection of all these religious principles and like this blanket worldview. I'm actually, so like you can talk about philosophy, I'm a nihilist. I'm a cosmic nihilist. Cosmic nihilism is the general belief in like that all things are meaningless because of the vast scale of the universe. It's so big, it's so crazy. There's no room for us in it as a meaningful thing because nothing has any meaning. Holy crap, I am looking real granular on my screen. I'm so sorry. I having some connection issues, it looks like. So I'm fine with that assertion. My then backup question would be, what's the issue with that? Because me not thinking that there's any meaning to human suffering or human existence in general, that I think that's a good thing in my opinion. That's a big part of my philosophy that I think makes me a better person. So you're calling in with this proposition that atheism makes our suffering meaningless. Johnny, I think, gave you a great breakdown on why that's a problematic claim in the first place. But even if I accept what you're saying, I don't see why that's a problem at all. I'm not going to refresh quickly, so I'll be right back.
Yeah. What is thy response, Andrew, to that?
That's harmful. And if the ideology is harmful, how can it's less likely to be true?
Okay. Well, it's harmful. I'll tell you what, I don't think it's harmful because I think that religion has been used by powerful groups of people to convince people that they should be suffering because of the conditions of the world, because of disparities of wealth, disparities of opportunity. amongst different peoples in society, and you should just accept that your suffering serves a greater purpose. Don't try to fight the system. Don't try to change the world. Just accept your lot in life, you second-class person. And the humanist says, that's bunk. Let's make society better. Let's eliminate needless suffering. Let's provide synthetic limbs to amputees. Let's find cures to sickle cell anemia. That was in the news recently, right? Let's not just pray to accept that we suffer and others have it better. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's try to fix the problem. So I would argue that the atheist humanist perspective is the only healthy perspective on suffering, because we want to root out the causes of suffering and, if possible, fix it. What do you think to that?
That's a good point.
Thank you.
If this is the only life we have, I can see how the humanist, worldview can say, okay, let's eliminate the suffering.
Yeah.
Because this is all it is. So that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay, Andrew, can you give us a specific example of suffering? And let's talk about that, not just suffering in general, but first of all, can you get off speakerphone?
I'm on Bluetooth headphones.
Okay, get off Bluetooth headphones. Go straight to your phone, please. Call screener told you not to do that. No offense, but you done broke the rules. Talk directly into your phone, because we got people at home that are trying to listen, and that's kind of hard to hear.
Okay. I'm here.
Okay, you're better. So give us a specific example of suffering that you believe religion sublimates and makes it a beautiful thing. And we'll talk about it from a secular humanist atheist perspective. Okay?
Okay. Well, I'm in a rough marriage, So, and we believe in the doctrine of indissolubility of marriage. And I'm staying together, for the family, for the kids. So my job, my role as a father and husband is to suffer in this, rough marriage. So for the overall happiness of the kids and the family and the community, and
okay.
Maybe on my deathbed, I'd say, hey, I kept it through with my wife.
Okay. All right.
And we're all together. So I kept the unity.
You've given me something to latch onto with my little pit bull face, okay? Okay. I'm not going to give you marriage advice. What the hell do I know about marriage advice? But I can tell you from a person from divorced parents that the kids will be affected if the relationship between the parents is dysfunctional. I'm not saying that they'd be more affected or less affected, but don't think that the fact that we stayed together is the thing that made things work. It's false. Mm-hmm. I would advise you to consult with a therapist to talk about the well-being of yourself, your partner, and your children, and staying with your partner despite the fact that you're in a bad or difficult relationship. It's not a given. It's not a given that that's the right thing to do. There are so many factors. And yeah, sometimes people hit rough spots in their relationships and they can work it out with healthy therapy and cooperative action. And sometimes they get separated, they get divorced, and then the kids have two healthy households. Okay, the parents can learn how to co-parent, and then they can learn that when they get into relationships someday, they're not stuck there. They're not stuck in a loveless, maybe unhealthy relationship, and they're prisoners of that. Like they because people change, they grow apart. Look at me, Mr. Love Guru over here. But quite honestly, that's something that a therapist would provide better therapeutic advice for, something that you probably need to give more specifics than I want to take on this call. I don't want to get into how it's difficult. But yeah, you could derive some meaning, and the meaning is that you're trying to provide for your family. And I would suggest that it's not given that that's a good thing. And you may be doing the right thing, you may not, and that's a bad example to for what we're talking about today. You got something else? You got another example besides your marriage? And I'm sorry to hear about it. It happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of us and everyone in between. Got another example? All right, not hearing another example. So we're going to move on.
Yeah, I have. I have one.
Oh, give it to me. Give it to me.
Okay, you go to work. You go to work every day. You're suffering. You're 9 to 5, but you have to work and suffer to pay your bills. So you're fulfilling Adam's call, the call from God given to Adam and Eve to provide and work to the sweat of your brow. So religion gives you that comfort of, okay, I'm busting it, but we're called to bust it. We're called to suffer. It gives us perseverance.
Okay.
That's not a call from God. That's a call from capitalism.
It's a call from capitalism. I got one for that too there, Andrew. Okay, the fact is that the people with hegemonic power in society have vested interest in maintaining a certain status quo. And that status quo keeps people within their sort of informal economic castes where they continue in jobs that maybe they hate. Maybe they hustle and they get to a job that makes a little bit more money. I happen to like my job. I've been very fortunate that way. I haven't always been that way, and I'm one of the lucky ones, okay? A humanist, not one of these anti-humanist atheists out there in YouTube land. They exist. They know who they are. They don't care about that kind of stuff. They don't care about the well-being of individuals in society. They have their own interests, or they care a different way. Let's put it that way. At least those of us here would work for social justice so that people have some sort of mobility, so that they can both maintain the basic means of existence, the way they can pay their bills, get food, electricity, whatever they need, and then move to a place that they like better. I'm not a communist or anything like that, but but I've certainly studied it more than maybe Ray has, and I know that we have plenty of socialist aspects to our democratic republic in our economic system. We have a safety net of sorts that works and doesn't work to varying degrees in different avenues of life, and so. The only meaning I derive from my work is I'm intellectually stimulated. It pays the bills that I'm forced to pay to live the kind of life that I want to live. And if you are in a spot where you hate your life because you hate your work and you hate your marriage, then maybe we humanists should construct a society that gives people the ability to move to a place. Got to make a move to a town that's right for me. To quote Lips Inc., okay? We want Funky Town, Forrest. We need a little bit more.
That is the atheist paradise.
Yeah, it was playing before the show started, I believe. So yeah, the status quo people, the religious conservative types, don't want to make those changes. They're fine where they're at, and to the extent that they're not, they convince themselves that there's a better life someplace else. And I think it's gross. What are your thoughts on that? He's thinking.
There's temporary solutions, but in the grand scheme of things, like eventually, like we know that most people will not be able to socialist utopian dream. All of us will suffer in one way or another, no matter what. It's inevitable.
Sure.
So
what? Like
yeah.
What's frustrating to me, Andrew, is that like I was having some connection issues earlier, but the last thing that I said was that I don't think there's any meaning to suffering, nor do I think there's any meaning to life or existence in general. I think that it's all completely just meaningless. It's just here. It's just stuff that happens. And I don't see an issue with that. And when I came in, it sounded like Johnny was saying exactly what I was going for there, which is if there is no I don't know if this is where he came from on it because I missed half of it, but it sounded like what he was saying is that because there's, this is a meaningless structure, we can decide what to do with it. And we can decide how many people are we going to let be homeless anymore? How many people are we going to let go hungry anymore? How many ecosystems are we going to fuck up anymore? How many children are going to starve anymore? Like how many things are we going to let go wrong? Mm-hmm. We can take control of it. We can reduce suffering. We can care for people around us. Because there is no meaning, we can then decide to make it whatever we want. And we can make a better society and make a better future. And what you've come back at us with, like, your argument in response is, well, I hate my marriage and I hate my job, but that's a good thing. And I don't see how those are equal stances. Whereas we're saying, be happy, do what's best for people around you. Care if you're talking about supporting your family, support them in a way that makes you a more full and fulfilled and happy, well-developed person, and that is going to be a benefit to them. If you hate your job, find the thing that you can do that makes you a better person, that fulfills your need inside to be whatever you want to be, that stimulates you intellectually and emotionally, because a person who's working like that is going to do better work and is going to make the world a better place. Like, everything you're giving us here is just like, this is my parochial, religious, capitalistic view. Yeah. And if I think of anything else outside of that, it sounds icky. So I'm going to stick with this. And we're just trying to share with you that there's lots of other ways to do things and lots of good reasons to do them in better ways.
And Andrew, to piggyback on that, to the extent that you are, it is not available to you to make a job shift that you would like to make. And that's probably the majority of all humans. They're stuck with what they've got, and they can make a little bit of wiggle room. We in this community don't like that. We, generally speaking, want to create a society where a person can follow their bliss, man, or to some degree, like, go to a place where they're getting more, like, their whole life is meaningful, right? Recognizing, of course, that is not a reality for the majority of human beings on Earth, and that's not right, but that's how it is right now. The status quo conservative types, tough nuts is what they might say. Right? Well, that's not what I say, and it's not what Forrest is saying either. So, what's your thoughts to that?
No, it's very kind and compassionate. I like the solutions, temporary solutions. I can't disagree with that. So
I like it, Andrew.
I have one more. I have one more question.
Yeah,
I have one more question before we move on, Andrew. Really quickly, if you didn't believe in a God, if you didn't believe in an afterlife, if you believed that this was the only life you had, and there was nobody watching over you with a tally book keeping track of all your deeds, all right, what would you do with your life? And what would you do for your family? And what would you do as a career? And what would you do with the little bit of life that you had, knowing that it was all that you had? Would you be a selfish jerk, or would you try to make the world a little bit better and do what's right for the people you love? Would you do any different in terms of that kind of morality or anything like that?
I would do the same thing. Bust it, love those close to me, be good to others, and try to make the best of it. I would do the same thing.
Hey.
Great.
Hey. Look, we're going to let you go, Andrew. I hope that you do consult with somebody to figure out what you're going to do. If your marriage is salvageable, I hope you fix it. If it isn't, I hope you go part to the extent that you can, raise those kids, and find meaning in every moment of your life. I don't like it when I'm going through Discovery and I'm reviewing documents and I'm going through thousands of pages, but there is an element of deferred gratification where I know if I put in the time here, I get to work on other stuff and I get to do other things that I enjoy there. And that's a reality under capitalism, and probably is a reality in any system, because someone's got to review the Discovery, right?
The Discovery.
Someone's got to do the Discovery.
That's what I'm hoping. That's all I wanted to get across with that last question, is that, it doesn't matter if there's meaning. You can find meaning without meaning. And I wish more religious people understood that.